In today's video, we'll be covering our thoughts on the technical analysis levels for the S&P 500, Nasdaq, Bitcoin, dollar index, gold, Tesla, AMC, and more. Yesterday was a mixed result in the stock markets. We saw some good starts with some bad finishes. The question is, why is this stock market being unable to break through this level? The easy answer, news is coming. Stay tuned to find out more. So let's begin by talking about our recap for the markets for June the 9th, 2021. And as soon as you look at this heat map here, you can see healthcare was the standout performer yesterday. And it's pretty much in line with what we've been talking about as a community. We've believed that healthcare was the rotational sector. It's coming through, and it seems to be coming through pretty strong. Let's have a look at yesterday's start. As per every day this week, great starts in the morning, followed by lackluster closes. And why is this? We have CPI data coming out in the US, and we're at near all-time peaks. So this means that we'll have to wait the news. Remember, sometimes the market will hit a key resistance or a key support just before news comes out, and it'll become abundantly clear as we do the technical analysis today. Russell was down the most, 0.67%, and the rest relatively flat throughout the session. Now, what was performing well? We had some defensives. We had utilities coming through. We had, of course, healthcare doing really well, 0.97, and one of my favorites, biotechnology sector, out in the lead early and continued for the rest of the day. The only bad sectors were the industrials, the financials, those types of ones. So let's get into the technical analysis. And I think one of the best places to start today is actually to talk about this Bitcoin move, because we saw El Salvador, obviously the president of El Salvador, Prime Minister, he came out and he effectively said, hey, this is our legal tender now. It's all good. We love Bitcoin. That's led to an initial rise, a very large rise here for about $6,000 on Bitcoin. And you'll notice it's just intersecting now with the daily 20 exponential moving average. This is the red line here. Now, I don't bring up this chart because I think this is a amazing kind of level or anything like that. I just bring up this chart because it's interesting that we're seeing this BTC shorts going crazy. So BTC shorts is going to a point that is as high as around that 16th of March. Now, this has been a very good indicator of whale movement. And we talked about it last night in the stream when we got a super chat on this, and we basically talked about this particular BTC shorts showing us the way several times for when we need to be very careful in the BTC markets. It looks like we're about to hit a very critical point. This has generally led to actual shorts coming through. The whales don't like to lose at their own game, and you can see a huge amount of open shorts right now. So are they stacking in? Absolutely. Are they going to try to push it round? It makes sense at this level for BTC to start to weaken. So be very careful out there in the markets. This chart is very compelling stuff when you pair it with the other times. Get this thing on, have a look, synergize it together, and you'll notice that when this is spiking, it often means turn around in BTC to the bearish side. And we're still not out of the woods yet. Of course, we believe that until we get past 42,000, 42.5, we are not safe on the Bitcoin. Let's get into the rest of the market now. Let's talk about dollar index. Dollar index has no way of figuring out which way it wants to go. We've talked about this several times. Weekly long leg doji indecision continues to be the story here. Maybe CPI will give us some kind of direction. At this stage, I'm staying clear of this chart, so we'll just keep moving on from that point. US 10-year, now that does have direction change. You'll notice it closed below the 1.5. This is technically a positive towards the Nasdaq. At least a lot of people see it that way. This is a descending triangle. At this stage, it looks like it should be able to continue to move lower to the 1.34. And as long as the CPI data hits up the right areas for Wall Street, probably like slightly bad news equals good news, that kind of scenario. Remember, we talked about before, really great news, not so good, slightly bad news, probably good for the markets, and really bad news is probably really bad. So as long as that stays stable around forecasts, then we should be able to continue to see this thing come on down, the markets to start to make new all-time highs, etc., etc., etc. So watch this 10-year yield. This will be a very big one for the next session. Let's move over to gold. Gold is hovering right around that level, that 1888, 1890. You can see it's trying to fail here. If it does fail, it's going to break through this low, and then all of a sudden we're going to see it back down in the 1870s, 1860s, possibly lower. Gold's going to be fairly volatile over the next 24 hours, so be careful here. If you're in long-term investments, of course, you hold hold them with whatever your direction is going to be, unless you want to get out before news. Otherwise, I expect volatility here, and we have no clean direction either way at this point, other than we know we're still in an overall uptrend. Silver's the same thing, really, guys. US oil, black gold, this one has pulled back straight to the support. We've seen this 2-hour 50 exponential moving average acting as pretty good levels. We've got that 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of philosophy still here. I think it's looking okay. It's right around this correct level of support. If you're looking at getting into it, you're looking for little lightning bolts on this kind of time frame, or similar to last time, little levels of structure that are broken above. This has been more of a trade on the way up. We've obviously been incredibly long here on black gold. Our eventual aims are 72 and then 75, 76. At this stage, nothing's changing, but CPI data will be the driver behind this. AMC fans, unfortunately, your movement is getting watered down. We saw CLOV yesterday go all the way up and then all the way back down to $16, $17 near the close. What's happening here is you had two initial pillars. You obviously had your AMC. I mean, I guess you had your BlackBerry as well and your Nokia, but you had your AMC and your GME. And we all know that there's only a certain amount of money to go around. Now, if the community gets fragmented and everyone goes chasing the next big thing, what's going to happen? It weakens the squeezes on the bigger ones, the two pillars, the AMC and the GME. And that's what we've seen so far. As COS, as Rocket, as Workhorse, CLOV, and every other one of these things, CLNE goes crazy. All these positions are damaging the ability for this one to hold, and people are taking profit here and then moving, trying to find the next big thing. So I'm looking here at the $48 through the next session. Let's see how it holds through the Thursday market open. If it gets underneath here, unfortunately, I believe that we could see some further selling here on AMC. And of course, the next levels are really those all-time high zones. So over here, maybe 40, 35, 36 is the next really heavy support here for AMC. Other than that, we want to break above 52.50, and then we should be able to go back up to the 60 zone. But look, it's very tough right now. We don't know exactly how much interest. Did we crescendo over here with the most amount of interest and the most amount of Twitter activity? It's going to be hard to get that movement back very quickly here as we're seeing money disperse through. So same for GME, same for everything else. GME is probably the more solid pick right now just because of its price and the fact that it was actually down after hours. And it went down, I think, another 5% after the earnings. So it's kind of on like a longer term trend line and a few other things. And I think Roaring Kitty's getting involved in as well. So look, it's a gamble. It's not really based on the technicals right now. And you've got to think about where's the chitter chatter on the tweeters, the Reddit, and everything else. That's what I would be doing if I was in those ones. Let's move over to Tesla now. Tesla around that $600 mark just doesn't seem to be able to get much momentum here. I guess we'll find out through CPI, through what the market does tomorrow, into whether the Nasdaq goes towards the 14,000, whether this thing can hold. 600 is a very important zone. I'd treat this as basically closing around 600. And when we go into the 1 hour chart, you'll see it's been hovering around this area for some time. So hopefully it picks up tomorrow for you guys. And we know that where the bears get full control of this market, 560 close below, that's going to be Armageddon on Tesla if it does occur. Let's move over to the US 100. So the US 100 continues to reject. This is the Nasdaq, and it finds great movement in the morning, followed by selling off during the day. Now, we're in the middle of a pretty decent range. So if we have a look here on the 4 hour, you'll instantly see we've closed above this 13,700 zone. Very critical area. Look at this. Beautiful resistance, beautiful support, multiple buy levels. We've got great resistance up here at the 14,050 area, and we're in the middle of that zone right now, trying to get direction. Now, why can't we get direction? CPI data. It's always the way. Last month, CPI data wasn't the best catalyst for the market, of course, sent it down. If the CPI data ends up being good, I would expect us to end up moving towards this 14,000. If the CPI data doesn't meet Wall Street's expectations, all of a sudden we're going to go through 13,750, and unfortunately the bears will potentially get control of the market again. And it's not even really this Nasdaq chart, even though I think that's going to be the better trade. That's the one we're looking at. You can see here on the QQQ, those 2 days just opens up bearish, opens up bearish. It's actually the US 500 that's pulling us back. This is the one that's testing this resistance. So see the 42.35. Look at the interaction with this zone. Test, 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 test. We're right here awaiting the news at the critical point just like usual in these markets. It's always that exact critical point just before the market news comes out, and we will see very shortly what's going to go on. Guys, if you haven't already, please remember to subscribe. Of course, hit that like button if you enjoy the videos, and join us. We'll be covering the CPI data tonight, 1.5 hours early before the New York Open. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be very tumultuous, and we'll have to find out whether this US 500 can hold up. Remember, you need to get economic calendars. This is forexfactory.com, but you can use MarketWatch or anything else. Make sure you get your data. Make sure you're well aware of this red news before it comes out, and don't get stuck in scalps going into this kind of data and information. You can really bash your account around. We'll see you very soon, and thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.